was the baby. She was the princess of their family.
It has been nearly 1 year since an 8-year-old girl was hit and killed during Kaysville's annual 4th of July parade. What changes the city has made in hopes of preventing something like this from ever happening again.
Tracking isolated storms tonight again and into tomorrow. What to expect for the 4th of July weekend.
A peak towering above Provo was renamed last year because of its original name's offensive roots.
What do those words mean, and how do we incorporate that in the world that we live in today?
But that name is still on all the signs, and we wanted to know why.
After decades of setting trends in Davis County, a beloved clothing store is calling it quits. The bittersweet end of an era, and why this husband and wife decided now is the time to close up shop.
Live from Utah's news leader, Fox 13 News at 9 starts right now.
When the city of Kaysville hosts its 4th of July parade on Tuesday, it will mark 1 year since 8-year-old Macy Hill was hit and killed during the town's annual event. Good evening, everyone. I'm Kelly Chapman.
And I'm Bob Evans. As Fox 13 News reporter Chris Arnold shows us, the city has worked to make several changes in hopes of preventing an incident like this from ever happening again.
She was the baby. She was the princess of their family.
This was Ryan Dopp, the spokesperson for Macy Hill's family, speaking with Fox 13 News the day after 8-year-old Macy, who he said had the ability to light up a room the minute she walked in, was hit and killed while performing with her cheer team in Kaysville's 4th of July parade.
The city's been deeply impacted by the loss of Macy.
Jason Christensen, the city manager for Kaysville, says they did an extensive review of their safety policies with their staff and considered different ways to change what they've done with the parade in the past.
I think the most notable thing that's been changed is that this year there will be no exchanges between any moving vehicles, floats, trailers, and the walking participants. I think we'll still have people passing things out, but those will be passed out from people walking, and they won't be able to go and refill their items or candy from the floats and the trailers.
Christensen says all walkers taking part in the parade will be required to walk behind the floats. He says those riding on the floats in the parade this year will have to stay at least 1.5 feet back from the edge of the float. Riders will also have to stay on the float the entire parade. Christensen says they would only be allowed to get off in case of an emergency. He says there will also be a zero-tolerance policy, stating if any violations of the rules are observed, they will have people exit the route immediately.
Even the mayor and the council, myself, will be walking the parade along with our first responders to kind of just keep an eye on everything and enforce the new rules. We're confident, though, that with the changes that are being made, that we'll be able to carry out the parade safely and in a way that can be enjoyed by the community.
While Christensen says safety is on the forefront of everyone's mind, honoring Macy is also something he says will be important during this year's parade.
First, there will be a banner near the front of the parade that will be in her honor. And it's my understanding that some of the parade participants are going to be wearing pink ribbons in Macy's memory as well.
Well, Christensen tells me the city has been in close communication with the family and that they plan to install a memorial bench out in front of the Kaysville City Fire Station here along Main Street in Macy's honor sometime in the future. In Kaysville, Chris Arnold, Fox 13 News, Utah.
One person is dead after a crash this afternoon on the I-215 West on-ramp at 4700 South. It happened at about 1:30 when a concrete pump truck lost one of its tires. UHP troopers were directing traffic nearby when a pickup truck slammed into the back of the pump truck. The driver was pronounced dead at the scene. Their name has not been released.
Today, the man accused of shooting a teen girl during a road rage incident in Davis County earlier this month faced a judge. The incident happened on I-15 in Layton on June 5th. It was that night that authorities accused 34-year-old Daniel Bowden of opening fire, hitting the 18-year-old victim twice in the face after she slightly swerved her car and made him angry. Bowden faces attempted murder charges. He's set to face a judge again on July 13th. The Utah Democratic Party held its convention tonight. Candidates are seeking to replace Utah Congressman Chris Stewart, who is stepping down.
Utah Senate Minority Whip Kathleen Reby, Guy Warner, and Archie Williams spoke to delegates tonight about why they should become the Democratic nominee in this special election.
This election can get national attention, and we need a candidate who can face and capitalize on such attention. I'm the only state legislator or elected official in the race for either party.
I want to run an authentic campaign based on our shared democratic values. Let's not shy away from what we believe in, but communicate that our values are, in fact, Utah's values.
If you don't pick someone the Republicans will not vote for at all, you're not going to win this election. We're not going to get there, and we're not going to take the House back and stop the Republicans from what they've been doing.
And this just in, within the last 30 minutes, the Utah Democratic Party has announced that Kathleen Reby has won the party nomination with 85% of the vote, advancing to the primary election. The Utah legislature has set the primary date for Tuesday, September 5th, and the general election on Tuesday, November 21st.
Kelly, the Utah Republican Party will submit Celeste Malloy's name as their nominee to replace Congressman Stewart. Doing so ended some delegate questions and complaints about her candidacy. They were concerned about Malloy's residency and voter eligibility. The Salt Lake Tribune reports Malloy lived in Virginia until recently, where she worked for Congressman Stewart. She didn't vote in the last two federal elections, putting her on inactive status. But Lieutenant Governor Deidre Henderson, the state's chief elections officer, says Malloy meets the qualifications for candidacy under the law.
From a state perspective, she's qualified. She answered the information she needed to on the candidate filing form, and there was, a little technical error with registration that she was unaware of, and once that was caught, she corrected that. But even that was not a prerequisite for candidacy.
Malloy pulled off an upset win at last weekend's Republican convention in Delta. Stewart is leaving in September to help his wife as she battles a health issue. We have new information regarding the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in the United Kingdom. After a grassroots effort in the church, anyone who works with children in the church will now need to undergo a background check. Our content partners at the Salt Lake Tribune report British members of the church have been pushing leaders for more effective standards to prevent sexual abuse. In addition to background checks, they will be emphasizing ongoing training and education on safeguarding children and abuse prevention.
The city of St. George will not appeal a federal judge's ruling allowing a drag show to be staged in a public park. That means the Southern Utah Drag Stars show will go on this Friday night at the Dixie Sun Bowl. Producers of the show and the ACLU sued after the city refused to grant a permit. A federal judge sided with the drag show and chastised city leaders over their handling of the situation, citing the First Amendment. A spokesperson for the city confirmed to Fox 13 News today they will not seek an appeal of the judge's order.
Speaking of Southern Utah, let's just cut to the chase. We got triple digits coming down there in a big way, Allison.
Yes, close to 100 to 110 for much of the forecast for Southern Utah. We're also going to be heating up here along the Wasatch Front. 74 degrees in Salt Lake and Ogden right now. For Provo, currently 72. Still a bit gusty down towards Milford, Manti, and Vernal, about 20 to 30 miles per hour in those areas. Still tracking a few cells moving just north of Soldier Summit through Tabiona right now over towards Strawberry. Looking across the entire state, we are going to end up with partly cloudy sky into tomorrow. Again, dry conditions for southeastern Utah leading to some fire concerns, but we'll have a better chance tomorrow for some more isolated to scattered storms to develop, particularly for the mountains of Utah throughout the day tomorrow. So for Salt Lake, we drop close to 60 as you wake up tomorrow morning. Throughout the day, we're going to have our temperatures tomorrow in the 80s again, and then things are really going to be heating up as we get closer to 4th of July. So for Thursday morning, we're looking at about 50 to 65 for much of our overnight temperatures. We'll talk more about this heat wave just in time for 4th of July weekend coming up.
Allison, thanks so much. Right now, Salt Lake police are warning about a new phone scam seeking donations. They say the scammer calls stating they're seeking donations for the police department and providing an address for them to send a check to, or for you rather, to send a check to. The department was tipped off to the scheme when a would-be victim contacted them to verify whether or not the call was real. Police want to remind everyone they will never call to request money.
Salt Lake City has been named a finalist for a $1 million public arts grant. It's being offered by Bloomberg Philanthropies, with Salt Lake being one of 17 finalist cities vying for a $1 million grant to create a temporary public art display addressing civic issues. The proposed project for Salt Lake City focuses on the ongoing issue of the shrinking Great Salt Lake. 154 cities from 40 states applied for the grant. The 10 winning cities will be announced this fall.
Palms are sweating. I grabbed my phone, tried to text my wife, tell her I love her. Just a really scary situation.
Terrifying moments for passengers aboard a Delta flight that had to make an emergency landing today. What Delta has to say about the situation.
Plus, Bed Bath & Beyond is getting a second chance, and it's coming from Utah. We'll explain how Overstock.com is stepping in.
The Moose is making a name for himself with RSL. We'll hear from Danny Musovsky on his nickname and what's clicked for him on the field.
A Davis County clothing store is closing its doors after more than 30 years of being a community staple.
They've been there for a long time. The owners of Kim's Fashions have a story of success that goes deeper than selling trendy clothing. Fox 13 News reporter Jenna Bree shows us how they achieved the American dream.
In the heart of Clearfield on South State Street, Kim's Fashions has served the hottest styles at the coolest prices for 33 years.
We try very hard to become, this big. So actually, our dream came true.
But Jeff and Kim Jacob and their lovable dog Coco are closing up their 7,000 square foot shop come July.
We're getting old.
No, we're not.
By time, we tired.
The couple met in Kim's home country of South Korea when Jeff, a Price, Utah native, was serving in the Air Force. They fell in love, got married, and eventually moved to Davis County together.
I always want to do something.
Kim always had big dreams, even when she was little. She says she started observing what people in Utah were wearing.
I know about this area style, modest clothes. A lot of people looking for the modest clothes for school. So I catch up that, their style. So I keep getting their what they want.
The Jacobs' daughter, Kimberly, relieved to finally see her parents taking a much-deserved break.
They have worked so hard, and I think just like any child who watches their parents just day in, day out, I mean, they are the only employees, so there was no paid time off, no paid leave. If they wanted to take time off, they had to close the store to do it.
The two found their niche in the community, but they wouldn't recommend anyone try to open a clothing store in 2023.
A lot of people buying online.
Yeah, we got online.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that makes it really slow down. So even somebody say they're going to open clothing business here, I say no. Because it's not going to be a success.
As sad as their loyal customers are that Kim's Fashions is moving out,
At least it's not going to be a car wash or an apartment building.
a school for autistic children will be moving in.
At the end of the day, I think that's really what's most important to my parents, is that if this building were to be sold or this space were to be sold, that it's going to something that's going to benefit the community.
Kim's Fashions plans to close sometime during the first week of July. In Clearfield, Jenna Bree, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Goes some history. Well, when you go fishing, you are looking for a great catch.
Usually, but last weekend, trash was the treasure. Utah's Weather Authority Allison Grogan has the story of a group that fishes for litter. Allison, tell me more.
Yes, you heard that right. So there's a group, it's a nonprofit here in Utah that organizes waterway cleanups and watershed education called Fish for Garbage. Over the weekend, they had their third annual Strawberry Reservoir cleanup. They sent me these pictures and videos of 120 people who showed up and collected more than 4,000 pounds of trash. They told me that this is how it works. Once a volunteer fills a bag with litter, they then trade them the litter for an entry into an opportunity drawing for a bunch of prizes. Some of them camp out, make a fun event or weekend out of it. And if you want to get involved, they actually have 2 more local events this year. The Green River on August 12th and the Weber River on September 16th. You can learn more on their website, fishforgarbage.org. Since this nonprofit was created back in 2015, they have already collected more than 60,000 pounds of garbage out of our waterways. So a round of applause for them. And if you guys ever have any cool community events that we could highlight here on Fox 13, tweet me, send me an Instagram message, tag me in those activities. I would love to share those and spread the word for those great things happening across our wonderful state. Now, our wonderful state, great temperatures right now, but not so wonderful heading into a holiday weekend. Some pretty big concerns actually for our community members heading into the 4th of July weekend. We've got some isolated storm chances for tomorrow. Air quality really bad in the Midwest from the Canadian wildfires, Chicago and St. Louis today, all the way down into Kentucky, having some of the worst air quality in the world today. And then we've got some very, very hot temperatures for the 4th of July weekend here across Utah. For the Wasatch Front tomorrow, partly cloudy for the morning drive. Evening drive, low 80s, partly cloudy. Still the chance for some thunderstorms into tomorrow, but we're really going to see those primarily for the mountains across the state. Even into central and southern Utah, chances for those thunderstorms for tomorrow. This afternoon and this evening, still a little gusty into southeastern Utah. It's calmed down quite a bit. We'll again have some more red flag warnings for tomorrow in southeastern Utah. So we'll continue with some fire weather warnings throughout the afternoon. And then for our precipitation chances for Salt Lake, Provo, and Ogden through about 2 a.m. Isolated storms are possible, a little more unlikely overnight. And then tomorrow, second half of the day, we're looking at isolated storm chances. It looks like Utah County is going to be our best chance, but we head into our overnight lows here across the state. Getting out early tomorrow, it'll be about 50 to 65 degrees here across the state. And for the Wasatch Front, throughout your Thursday tomorrow, temperatures will rise into the 80s. Enjoy these cooler temperatures while we have them because it is going to be a lot hotter this weekend. Looking at our chance for storms tomorrow and our temperatures Thursday at 4 p.m. It'll be about 70 to 85 degrees here across the state, 60s for Park City and Evanston. Really just going to have that chance for some gusty wind, areas of lightning, and some areas of brief heavy rainfall, maybe even some hail. But our biggest threat this evening with our storms was the gusty conditions. We saw a lot of wind gusts, about 30 to 35 miles per hour. Wind gust forecast tomorrow, again about 15 to 20 miles per hour here across the state with our gustiest conditions, Green River, Hanksville, Four Corners into southwest Colorado. Weekend weather heating up. Sunday for Salt Lake 97, Monday 98, 4th of July on Tuesday 96. So I do want to remind you that heat safety is really important. These will be the hottest temperatures that we've had so far this summer. Heat is our #1 weather-related killer in the United States. So staying hydrated, staying shaded, staying in the air conditioning if possible, but I know a lot of you are going to be recreating this weekend. And I also want to give a reminder not to leave kids or pets in the car. Cars can become deadly even within just a matter of a few minutes. So some reminders as we head into our first heat wave, because look at these temperatures. St. George, you are close to 105 to 110. Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and 4th of July. But for tomorrow, 97. Isolated storms possible for the Wasatch Front tomorrow at 84. 87 on Friday, then we are close to that century mark. Sunday, Monday, and 4th of July. We'll talk a little more on what we can expect over the next 2 weeks. Coming up in just a bit. We'll be right back.
Welcome back, everyone. If you are heading to Zion National Park, prepare for a busy weekend. Park rangers anticipate long lines at entrance stations and shuttle stops, as well as crowded trails and visitor centers. Now, the park may intermittently close the east and south entrances to reduce vehicle congestion. Zion will work with the town of Springdale to manage traffic and help everyone park efficiently. It's going to be so hot this weekend as well, so be prepared.
And crowded. Well, with increased recreation at Utah's lakes comes the increased risk of the dreaded quagga mussels. But a new decontamination method takes what was once an hour-long process and shortens it to just minutes. The Division of Wildlife Resources partnered with Clean Wake to set up a hot water dip tank at the Glen Canyon National Recreation Area. It's the second dip tank in the state. It works by submerging the watercraft in a 14-foot wide, 5-foot deep tank of water heated to 110 degrees, flushing the intake systems and killing any quagga mussels that have attached to the vessel.
We can produce 100% guaranteed biological kill of any organisms that we're dealing with, and in the past we did not have that kind of guarantee.
Yeah, in the past, DWR staff had to spray boats down with hot water, taking up to an hour. With the dip tank, decontamination takes only 5 minutes.
Or we could throw anything. They were banging at our doors telling us to get out.
Details on the fire that displaced dozens of residents in Tooele.
10 months ago, the feds changed the name of a peak in Provo because it was offensive, but the slur is still on signs. I asked the county why.
A new state law goes into effect this week, impacting all police agencies in Utah. I'll tell you why domestic violence victim advocates say it's a huge game changer.
The Utah Jazz announced their Summer League roster. Will it include the 3 rookies? We'll find out coming up.
Residents of an apartment complex in Tooele are out of their units tonight after a fire broke out on the 3rd floor.
About 60 tenants were displaced this morning. The fire broke out at the Kirk Apartments at 57 West Vine Street. Fox 13 News reporter Darian DeBrule shares details of what happened and what's next.
Or we could throw anything. They were banging at our doors telling us to get out, get out.
It was a chaotic scene this morning for Kirk Apartment residents like Sarah and Emmanuel Ruiz.
When it went off, we went downstairs and they said, "Oh, false alarm." It wasn't there wasn't really a fire. So I went back up and I started combing my hair. And that's when the alarm started going off again. And that's when they started banging on the door telling us to get out. I still have my comb on me. That's how much we were in a rush.
The second time they exited the building, the smoke coming from the 3rd level apartment was visible.
Everybody came out from all over the neighborhoods, and everybody was coming down the stairs from the buildings.
We did evacuate the whole building for precautionary reasons. Approximately 60 residents were evacuated.
The Kirk is a hotel-turned-apartment complex. Chief Matt McCoy with the Tooele City Fire Department says the age of the building and location of the fire was challenging.
An old structure was built in 1928, being on the 3rd floor. Those pose some challenges for us.
Nobody was injured in the fire, but Sarah says her asthma was triggered by the smoke.
I've been struggling with it for about a week, but now the smoke is making it even worse.
Like many others, Sarah and her son are now wondering when and if they'll be allowed back into their homes.
We'll have to have the city come out and do their clearances and make sure the building's safe before we know that answer.
Chief McCoy says the apartment the fire was confined to is expected to be a total loss and the cause is still under investigation. In Tooele, I'm Darian DeBrule, Fox 13 News, Utah.
A bankruptcy judge has approved Utah-based Overstock's purchase of Bed Bath & Beyond. Now, although the brand will be kept alive, Overstock is not buying the physical stores and inventory. Overstock emerged as the winning bidder for the company's intellectual property in a deal worth $21.5 million. A separate auction is being held today for the Bye Bye Baby chain, which was also part of Bed Bath & Beyond.
In national news, the FAA is investigating after a Delta Airlines plane landed in North Carolina with its nose landing gear up today. Flight 1092 left Atlanta this morning and stopped on the runway in Charlotte about an hour and a half later, shutting the runway down. Delta says 2 pilots, 3 flight attendants, and 96 passengers were on board the Boeing 717 aircraft during the emergency landing.
Palms are sweating. I grabbed my phone, tried to text my wife, tell her I love her. Just a really scary situation.
No one was hurt. Delta says this is a rare occurrence and flight crew train extensively to safely manage situations just like this.
It has been almost a full year since the Derogatory Geographic Names Task Force renamed hundreds of landmarks all across the country that had an offensive word in their titles.
50 places in Utah needed a name change. In some areas of the state, the local government did not follow the federal government's lead. Fox 13 News reporter Emily Tenzer asked those leaders why.
This peak is a familiar sight to the people of Provo, but its new name is not so familiar.
I haven't even heard the name change, honestly.
The new official name is Kive Peak, and Kive is the Ute word for mountain. The renaming was part of an initiative by the feds to remove an offensive word to Native Americans from over 600 landmarks.
A lot of the history has shown that that word has become a slur, a racial slur, and very derogatory towards women.
But 10 months later, that racial slur is still on the street maps and the signs at the mouth of Provo Canyon.
Why is the road that goes up to the peak that was changed, why can't we change that name too?
Christina Groves with the Urban Indian Center saw the word while driving and it caught her off guard.
I think it should have been done. You know, personally, I think it should have been done at the same time.
I reached out to Public Works and was told that at the time of the peak name change, they asked the county commission if they should also change the street name too, and were told no. So I reached out to commissioners and they sent me a statement. Writing, this was a decision left undone by a previous commission of which we had no knowledge. We are committed to beginning the process of changing the name.
I definitely think that there should be a little bit of uniformity to it, if that makes sense, just because the name of this street has always reflected the same name as the mountain.
The road is maintained by the county but shares ownership with Provo City and the U.S. Forest Service. The commissioner's office says that right now Public Works is updating the official county map and the street name change will require commission approval sometime at the end of the year.
There are words that have meaning in this valley that were here before, you know, maybe the pioneers came. And so what do those words mean and how do we incorporate that in the world that we live in today?
In Provo, Emily Tenzer, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Coming up, a new law is going into effect this weekend, how a new questionnaire was created to protect victims of domestic abuse, and how it will be used.
And political parties and candidates will soon be able to get more information on voters. We'll explain.
And temperatures today made it to 82 degrees in Salt Lake. That is below our normal of 89 degrees. We're heating up, though, heading into a holiday weekend. What to expect for the 4th of July.
I know, and we all know, that no one deserves to be abused. But we know that that's happening, and those instances are happening. And I'm so grateful for this change that is coming into our state, for the changes that are already happening, because it will save lives.
A big change in Utah law will take effect this weekend aimed at helping save victims of abuse from being killed.
Utah's Department of Public Safety is rolling it out to police departments around the state.
Fox 13 News political reporter Ben Winslow explains how it works.
This was our first family reunion that we had without my cousin, Mandy Main, who was murdered last August by her ex-husband.
Lieutenant Governor Deidre Henderson's family tragedy helped spark a major law change.
There are so many families and individuals throughout the state of Utah who are going to benefit from this.
All police agencies in Utah will soon have to conduct what's called a lethality assessment.
Question number 1 goes, has the aggressor ever used a weapon against the victim?
It's a series of questions that help determine if someone in a domestic violence situation is at risk of being murdered. Utah's Department of Public Safety created a uniform questionnaire, and if someone answers yes, they're connected to victim services. The agency also cross-checks the data, removing silos between law enforcement agencies.
No one enjoys going to a domestic violence call just because it's so stressful and it's also so dynamic, and that we don't necessarily know what's going to happen.
Because when you're in the situation, a lot of it seems normal, right? And so someone walking you through those questions can help you realize this isn't normal, this is abuse.
Ashley Taylor runs the Refuge Utah, which provides support for domestic violence survivors.
So making it a mandate statewide will have a huge impact.
Public Safety Commissioner Jess Anderson says before the law change, about half of Utah's police departments did lethality assessments.
There's agencies that mostly out in rural areas or just don't have the ability, haven't had the ability to put as much emphasis and support to it, have completely embraced it. We have our large agencies who most had some sort of lethality assessment going forward. They have embraced it as well.
The new law goes into effect July 1st, when all police agencies in Utah will be required to conduct these lethality assessments. The Utah Department of Public Safety has already been piloting it, and what they found is stunning. Out of 206 cases submitted so far, 128 came back with a risk. That means there were 128 people potentially at risk of being injured or murdered.
I'm shocked by that, but I'm also really, really gratified to hear that this is working. Also, they've been able to identify offenders through this process already who they would have missed.
In Orem, Ben Winslow, Fox 13 News, Utah.
I think it's a tool that can be used, I hope, to make an enormous difference in bringing awareness and shining a light in this dark world.
Coming up, a movie based on a true story of a former government agent and his mission to save children being trafficked for sex premieres in Utah. Details behind the film coming up.
Utah Jazz released their Summer League roster today. It includes some players who should be a part of the rotation next season. And the Moose is loose with RSL. We'll hear from Danny Musovsky on his nickname and what's clicked for him this season.
This game is back to life.
Postcards have been popping up in mailbox notifying some Utahns of a change in voter identification laws starting July 1st.
Viewers reached out to Fox 13 News worried about information like their mailing address and age being available.
Fox 13 News reporter Lucy Nelson looked into their concerns and breaks down why things are changing.
I think it's always important to canvass your district, but if a person is concerned about privacy, I think that is something that the legislature needs to pay attention to.
President of the League of Women Voters, Catherine Bealey, has concerns about a new law going into effect July 1st that impacts voters. Many are learning about it through a postcard sent to them in the mail.
Yeah, so about 320,000 voters will be affected by this.
State Board of Elections Director Ryan Cowley says around 30% of registered voters will be notified of the change, which will, quote, permit qualified requesters to access non-identified information. These voters are in the withheld category, which gets complicated. Cowley says around 15 years ago, the law changed from everyone's information being public to where anyone could request to keep all information private from candidates, campaigns, and political parties. That changed in 2020, when only those with a certain reason to be kept private, think judges, domestic abuse survivors, and police officers, could withhold information. The others that opted to be private from before were grandfathered in. Now, because of a House bill passed this year, those voters in the withheld category will have to release some, but not all, information.
So basically their name and things like that are anonymized, but things like their address, party affiliation, vote history will now be given out to the political parties and candidates.
I met with the bill's sponsor, Representative Norman Thurston, who says the private or withheld voters not sharing information was impacting the campaigning process.
We got to a situation where in some voter areas, as many as 30 or 40% of voters, the candidates in the political parties couldn't find anything about them, like nothing at all. Their records were completely suppressed, which made it very difficult to do voter engagement.
I asked him about privacy concerns with sharing mailing addresses.
So I will only be able to know, okay, that house, there's a registered voter, that house, there's a registered voter, but I won't know that that is Ben or that's Jenny, or I won't be able to know any of that. I'll just know that there is a registered voter at that address.
Bealey says she understands the need for transparency, but also hopes it doesn't impact voter turnout.
Of course, we are always concerned about privacy, but more importantly, we are concerned about any barriers to voter participation. And if this creates any new barriers, we will be watching.
In Salt Lake City, Lucy Nelson, Fox 13 News, Utah.
It has been years in the making. The film Sound of Freedom made its debut in Utah today. Take a look. Sounds pretty dramatic there. The movie is a thriller based on the true story of former government agent Tim Ballard, who embarks on a dangerous mission to rescue children from sex trafficking. Ballard went out to found and lead Operation Underground Railroad, which rescues children all around the world. The red carpet premiere was held in Orem this afternoon. Fox 13 News caught up with key cast members and the real-life inspiration for the whole thing.
It's been about 8 years since they started this process, and honestly, I didn't think it was ever going to happen. I did some research when we were first approached by the producers, and I learned that I think less than 5% of movies make it from concept to big screen. So honestly, I'm just grateful. It's a miracle, really.
Now, 5 years ago, I had the chance to host Tim Ballard and Jim Caviezel as guests on the now discontinued 3 Questions, where they talked about the then upcoming movie, Sound of Freedom. They were just about to start shooting when we shot this interview. I asked Ballard about whether making the movie might tip off the perpetrators of these child sex rings.
And if by chance someone does see this interview or sees the film and they're about to set up a sex party in Thailand or India or wherever, and they think, what if it's those Underground Railroad guys? Well, let's not do that. Well, good, hallelujah, then we won that one.
I've been doing this for 30 years, and this is a fine screenplay, and I was lucky to be chosen that Tim came to me for this. I never get the easy ones. This is going to be, but I love it. And what's different about this one is there's great hope in it. It has such redemption in it. And the good guys win.
Now, Caviezel is famous for his portrayal of Jesus Christ in Mel Gibson's The Passion of the Christ. He says he was born for these kinds of roles and he would not dream of doing anything else.
Temperatures here across the state right now in the 70s. Tomorrow we'll have highs into the 80s, but it should be a pleasant start. As we look at the UV index for tomorrow, it's going to be very high at an 8 tomorrow. So we head into the next couple of days. We've got a lot of heat concerns as we head into 4th of July weekend. Come tomorrow, we do have some chances for rain, mainly for the mountains throughout midday. And then we're going to continue with a chance for some areas of isolated showers and thunderstorms developing. By Friday, we look at that chance for some rain mainly up in the mountains of northeastern Utah, but really shouldn't be any big travel hazards for you across the state for tomorrow. Still a little bit of rain out towards Rush Valley, but the big concern with our storms that we saw this evening were some very gusty conditions. Things have started to calm down here across the state, and hour by hour forecast into tomorrow morning, looking at about 50 to 65 degrees here across Utah with a few clouds. More chances for showers and thunderstorms throughout the day tomorrow with 70s and 80s here across Utah. So for Ogden, 80 at 5 o'clock tomorrow, 83 in Salt Lake, 76 for Provo. I do want to mention some very strong storms still possible up in Wyoming. They have been in a trend of some severe weather, severe thunderstorms, tornadoes on and off over the past several days. And then as we look at our chance of precipitation here in the Beehive State, isolated storms for Ogden tomorrow. Maybe some isolated storms on Monday, but it's not looking like a great chance, but there is still that possibility. For Provo tomorrow, we are looking at some isolated storm chances, and by Monday night, some more isolated storms possible. St. George, same thing, looking at some isolated storms for Thursday. So temperatures are on the rise. I do have some pretty big concerns for people who are going to be recreating camping this weekend, especially in southern Utah. We're going to have temperatures around 105 to 110 Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and on the 4th of July for the St. George area. But for tomorrow, partly cloudy, 97 chance for some isolated storms. For the Wasatch Front tomorrow, isolated storms 84 tomorrow, 87 on Friday, and then we are close to 100 degrees Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Tuesday is the 4th of July, and then looking at our 2-week temperature outlook, things are going to start trending closer to normal throughout the second week of July, along with drier across southern Utah and a little wetter across the northern part of the state through mid-July.
The Utah Jazz announced their Summer League roster today. It includes Ochai Agbaji and the 3 players they just drafted, Taylor Hendricks, Keontae George, and Bryce Sensabaugh. We'll have to see just how much the rookies will play. Hendricks did not work out for the Jazz before the draft because he said he tweaked his hamstring. The number 9 pick said on Monday he feels good now and wants to play in the Summer League, but he's going to take it a day at a time. Knee surgery ended Bryce Sensabaugh's season at Ohio State. He says he's good now, but will rely on the medical staff for the Jazz. Jazz play their first game on Monday at the Delta Center. Real Salt Lake forward Danny Musovski is in great form right now, making plays and scoring goals. Usually he's followed by shouts of the Moose. I asked him if he likes that nickname that he picked up when he played with the LAFC.
Savarino driving it to the heart of the area. Born Gary! And it's tied at 1! The Moose is loose!
Yeah, I like it. At first, when I first came in the league, I didn't like it as much, but now it's grown on me, and it started in LA. The media people there kind of started it, and then the fans joined in on it. But yeah, I like it.
The way he's playing right now is worthy of a cool nickname. He scored his first 2 goals this year in U.S. Open Cup matches, followed by 4 goals in his last 9 MLS games. He came to RSL with an injury last year, but that's now behind him.
I just feel healthy now. I think earlier I was dealing with a lot of injuries, and now I feel healthy, and I feel like I'm playing how I expect to play.
He's done a really good job of playing like a proper striker, his movement off the ball, his movement with the ball, his finishing.
He made a strong run onto this great ball from Pablo Ruiz on Saturday and then put it into the back of the net.
Danny Musovski!
That's a rewarding feeling, and I think that's the hardest challenge mentally as a forward. I just always need to be opportunistic and always expecting that chance is going to come.
It takes a lot of hard work to get to this level of professional soccer, but Musovski has that drive.
You know, I do it for myself, I do it for my family, and I think that's probably my main motivation. But every day, yeah, it's, as a professional, it's a grind. You need to be dialed in, and I think that comes with a lot of experience. So I think now I'm in a good place in my career where I'm starting to put it all together, and I feel like I'm in a good place.
The Moose is loose again!
Moose look cute, but they're dangerous. Is that you on the soccer field?
Yeah, I feel like Moose could get, very aggressive, and they want to win, so that's me.
He's a winner. He's lethal. So kind of like a moose. Don't make him mad.
He'll take it.
Yeah.
You have to get him antlers, though.
I love it. Yeah, I love when you really bring in a nickname and you embrace it.
Yeah, make it work.
Yeah, right.
Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah, we'll be right back.
Thank you, everyone, for watching Fox 13 News at 9.
QuickCast is up next.